In the previous video, we had talked about how to convert between mixed number and improper fraction. And we're going to use those skills to help us multiply and divide mixed numbers. We have 3 1/2, and we want to multiply that by 1 6/7. The first step, anytime that we have a mixed number, the method that we use to work these mixed number problems is that we're going to convert these to improper fractions. That's what we're going to look at first. And to change a mixed number to improper fraction, remember we're going to multiply the numerator and the whole number, and then, the denominator and the whole number. We're going to multiply the denominator and the whole number, and then we add the numerator. So this would be 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And then we keep the denominator the same, which would be 7/2. Then we do the same thing for the second fraction. 7 times 1 is 7. Add 6, and we get 13. And we keep the denominator the same, and that's going to be 7. Once we change those to improper fractions and we're multiplying, it's the same as if we were multiplying two fractions. We just have that extra first step, and then it's the same as multiplying two fractions together. When we multiply fractions, we go straight across. We multiply the numerators together and then the denominators together. 7 times 13 will give us 91. 2 times 7 gives us 14. So my fraction would be 91/14. Now, if you are taking my class, whenever we have a mixed number, whenever we start with mixed numbers in our problem, we want the answer to be in mixed number form. If you're in another class and they accept improper fractions for the answer, then you would just need to make sure your fraction's in simplest form, see if you need to reduce, and then you could keep your answer in this form. But for my class, if we start with a mixed number, we want to end with a mixed number if possible, if you can convert it to a mixed number. In this case, you can because it's an improper fraction. And we change improper fractions to mixed numbers by long division. And I have a previous video where I go through the steps on how to divide these. But we're looking at how many times will 14 go into 91. And this is something, again, you would kind of go through your multiplication facts. 14, maybe try 4, maybe try 7, or use your calculator to help you. We would just try to see how close we could get to 91. And it will divide evenly 6 times. 14 times 6 is 84. So it goes evenly 6 times. And 14 times 6 is 84. And then we would subtract. 91 minus 84 is 7. To write our final answer to go from our long division to a mixed number, this is our whole number because it went 6 whole times. 7 is our numerator and 14 is our denominator. And we talked about in the last video, before you simplify your fraction, look and make sure your denominators match. All right, your denominator for your improper fractions would be the same as your denominator for your mixed number. That just kind of helps make sure you're putting these in the right form. But we do want to simplify this fraction. We can reduce this fraction by 7, and we would get 6 1/2 for a final answer. So changing or multiplying with mixed numbers, we're going to change them to improper fractions first. That's our first step. Then since we're multiplying, we multiply straight across. Then if possible, we want to change that improper fraction back to a mixed number, and we do that by long division. So 6 1/2 would be our final answer. For dividing with mixed numbers, we're going to do the same first and last step. Our first step is going to be to change these to improper fractions. So whenever you see these mixed numbers, first step is we're changing them to improper fractions. So again, you're going to multiply and you're going to add. And so you're going to get 35 over 8. And we're dividing. Then you're going to multiply and add for the second fraction. 6 times 2 is 12 plus 5 gives us 17 over 6. When we get to this step, this is where it's important to stop and look, what operation am I doing? Because again, if you're in my class, then when we get to this test, we're going to be looking at multiplication, division, adding and subtracting. And so it's very important to make sure we have the next right step for here. So with mixed numbers, change them to improper fractions, then look at what step am I doing. If I'm multiplying, I'm going straight across. If I'm dividing, and only if I'm dividing, I flip that second fraction. Okay, that's where we do our keep, flip, change. Keep the first fraction the same. Flip our second fraction. And then we're going to change this to multiplication. So make sure, sometimes when we're dealing with mixed numbers, there's a lot of steps involved in these mixed number problems. And so sometimes we forget to do that flip step in between. We want to make sure that we're flipping that second fraction, and only the second one when we're dividing. All right, so now that we flipped it, it turns into a multiplication problem, which is just to multiply straight across. So we have 35 times 6 gives us 210. And then 8 times 17 gives us 136. And we get 210 over 136. My answer is an improper fraction, meaning that it's at a value greater than 1. So we can change that to a mixed number. If I start with a mixed number, I want my answer to end with a mixed number. I'm going to use long division to change this to a mixed number. $136 will go into 210 one time. So I put my 1 on top, and then I'm going to subtract. And that's going to give me 74. And you can use your calculator to subtract. We could say 210 minus 136, and we could get 74. And then I write this as a mixed number, 1 and 74 over 136. So this is my mixed number. But I want to make sure that I'm writing my fraction part of my answer in simplest form. And so I am going to have to reduce the 74 over 136. And this is, I know they're both even, so I can reduce it by 2. If you want to check to see if there's a larger number it could be reduced by, but 2 is going to be the number that we're going to use. So if I'm going to say 74 over 136, I'm reducing it by 2. I get 37 over 68. And I just divided 74 by 2 and 136 by 2. And this would be my final answer, 1 and 37 over 68. For our last example, again, we're dividing mixed numbers. I have mixed numbers. My first step, change them to improper fractions. So this is going to give me 7 over 3. I'm still dividing. and this gives me 22 over 5. Some people like to flip it all in one step, change it to mixed number, change it to improper fraction, flip it, multiply all in one step. That's fine. Just be really careful that you don't forget to flip your fraction. Sometimes when people try that, I see that that's often something that they forget to do. So make sure that you're remembering to flip that second fraction. So when we get here, we look and see what operation, and we're dividing, which means I keep the first fraction the same. I flip my second fraction and I multiply. Once it changes to multiplication, that's when I multiply straight across. 7 times 5 is 35. And then 22 times 3 is 66. So 35 over 66. Now this is where I usually look to change it back to a mixed number, right? Because if you're in my class, we have mixed number problems. We want our answer to be in mixed number form if possible. That's what we did with this example over here, number 2. We changed it to a mixed number. But if you look at the type of answer that we got, am I able to change that to a mixed number? Does 35 over 66 represent more than 1? If I wanted the whole piece, I would need 66 over 66 in order to have the whole entire piece. But I only have 35 of those pieces, which means I can't change this to a mixed number because I don't even have a whole piece. So this cannot be changed to a mixed number. Sometimes that happens where we don't get an improper fraction for our answer. All right, so make sure you're just not in the habit of, okay, now I've got to do long division, and then you write it backwards and do your long division with this, but this cannot be changed into a mixed number. I would need to see if I could simplify my fraction, reduce my fraction, just like I've done with some previous problems. This is not going to reduce. There are no no factors in common between 35 and 66. 7 and 5 and 35 are the factors of 35, and none of those divide evenly into 66. But if you're on a test or a graded assignment, you may just want to double check to make sure. Use your calculator to help you, and just make sure there are no common factors that you could simplify by. But this would be my final answer for number 3, 35 over 66.